Hi there, Reverend Monica here with Unity Spiritual Center near the Villages, and today is January 10th, 2021. And today's daily word is prosperity. So I want to share this with you. I claim prosperity now. When I feel tempted to wish for a more prosperous life, I remember my prosperity begins at the level of my thinking. I focus my thoughts on the many blessings already in my life and feel grateful. From this place of gratitude, it becomes easy to notice more and more blessings all around me. This awareness helps me develop an attitude of prosperity. I tend to my thoughts of prosperity as though they are flowers in a garden. I plant them in good soil and nurture them with water and sunshine. This rich environment allows prospering ideas to take root and grow. As I nurture these ideas, I am abundantly blessed in life, love, health, and joy. And from Psalms 36:8, they feast on the abundance of your house, and you give them drink from the river of your delights. I claim prosperity now. So I invite you to get still. I invite you to just go within. And what I like to say is just assume the position to receive the blessings from God. And blessings come in divine ideas. They come in thoughts. They come in feelings and emotions. And so as we tap into this reservoir of unlimited ideas, we recognize that our thoughts create our prosperity. And our mind has plenty of opportunities for us to be presented with divine ideas that bless us with prosperity in life, love, health, and joy. So I invite you to just get still where you are and put both feet on the ground and give yourself permission to take a nice deep breath. Yeah. And we just let go of the outer circumstances and all that's happened this week directly in our lives and on the peripheral of our lives. And we just go within. We just give ourselves permission to go deeply within, to tap into the mind of God. For within you is that mind of God. It lives and breathes within you. And like anything that we need to nurture, whether it be a puppy, a baby, a spouse, a friend, when we nurture something, we give it what it needs. We water it with right ideas. We feast it on abundant thoughts and stay away from the negative side of our consciousness. Instead, we choose to go to our God mind, our superconsciousness, where all of God resides. And in that superconsciousness is our prosperity, is our spiritual wealth, is our knowingness that truly all things are possible with God. For you have innately within you that process by which you can tap into God mind. So we look at our prosperity. We look at our life, our love, our health, and joy. And if it seems lacking in any of those areas, because prosperity is more than just money, it's abundance of all that there is, including love, health, joy, and the very life that we have. So we take this time to look at an area of our life that we would like the mind of God to speak to us in an intuitive way, maybe directly, maybe just a knowingness of some thought that you need to eradicate that's inhibiting you from experiencing the full abundance of life. And we ask the mind of God to release old thinking that's holding us back and to enhance our awareness of our ability to think right thoughts, right prosperity ideas. So much of our prosperity is built within our thinking. And yes, sometimes it requires an outer action. But our internal thoughts will so enhance us when we come from our God mind and not from our personal mind. Our personal mind is questionable. It changes from day to day, but God mind never changes, never falters. So I invite you now to go into the silence, to be still, and to tap into your unlimited prosperity through your God mind, your superconsciousness. And so we allow ourselves to go deeper within ourselves, to tap into your unlimited prosperity. And so therefore we just get silent. So ever so gently bring yourself to the awareness of the circumstances around you. And in our own special way, we give gratitude for knowing we are able to tap into God mind anytime we choose to. And so it is. Amen. Amen. And so for the last year and a half or so, we've really did a lot of talks about below the line and above the line behavior. And the success of that within your life is dependent on your consciousness. You must be aware, conscious of what you say and do that might be below the line or above the line. And so now we dive a little bit deeper into that, into the consciousness of our thinking. When we are conscious, we are able to recognize that we are a choice on what it is we want to think about. Now, I had a minister in my life who expressed that he believed that the mind created feeling. But then I had another minister who believed that feeling preceded thinking. Emilia Shanklin, in her book, What Are You? She was of the latter thinking, that our feelings are generated by what's in our mind from our previous thoughts, the thinking part of us. You see, there are three levels of actions in our lives. There's the conscious, there's the subconscious, and then there's the superconscious. And so today's lesson is about those three stages of consciousness. Now, because we're breathing, we are conscious. We'll just go with that spirit of that by the very breath we have, we're conscious of it. We can pay attention to that breath, or we can just let it go automatically, as we do for most of our life. It's unconscious, our breath. Consciousness is where resides all that goes on around us. And the consciousness of us chooses what thoughts, what actions, what thinking to follow. Now, our subconscious mind is like it is like a barrel that just holds everything. everything that's ever happened to us, true or not, based on fact or not, the senses, we smell an apple, therefore there's an apple present. Maybe, maybe not. But our mind is a reservoir that collects everything that's ever happened to us. And some would say even what happened to us in a previous life. I don't know. You get to choose on that. And the third level is our superconscious. Now, the superconscious is where the God mind resides. Everything in the superconsciousness is of God. Nothing else enters that state of mind, that superconscious mind, unless it's from God. Now, the good part is that because we've been really focusing on that we are embodied in the image and likeness of God, and some would say, how could that possibly be? I don't look like God. You don't look like God. But the truth is, we are the image and likeness of God according to our mind. And that's the part where we have free will. See, the superconsciousness is sitting there, which I call now the God mind. The mind of God, which is always good, is sitting in our superconsciousness. Our consciousness gets to jump back and forth from our subconscious and the superconsciousness. And the conscious makes choices on where it wants to get its information for our choices, because we are making choices 24/7. We are constantly making choices. And so this lesson is about becoming conscious of where you're collecting your choices, where you're getting your data with which to make a choice. The human experience allows us to go from any of those three states of consciousness. If we choose the subconscious to make our decisions, it could be based on faulty information. It's not always, but it could be. It's sitting there with the potential to be false, leading us astray, and sometimes leading us so far off the beaten path that we think we are separated from God. That's part of the human experience. And our quest in this life, this humanness of us, is to bring ourselves closer to a relationship with God. And so when we choose to tap into the superconsciousness for our divine ideas and our direction, it will always lead us to our highest and possible good. And that's what we want, the highest and possible good. Unfortunately, our humanness sometimes makes those decisions for us, bypassing the superconsciousness and going right into the subconscious. We might hear ourselves say, well, that's never worked before. Or the last time I tried that, that didn't work. Or can't trust God here. Whatever your monkey talk is, which Joel Goldsmith mentions as monkey talk, we have within us this notion that where God leads us is not always in our highest and best interest. That's the subconscious. That's the subconscious giving us erroneous information based on something we've read or watched on TV or even experienced, that we have this sense of that God is not there for us. That's false. God is never not for us. God is always within us, pushing us ever so slowly and gently forward in our understanding of who we really are. You see, last week we talked about the individuality and our personality. Our personality will immediately jump to the subconscious mind. But the identity part of us knows, never changing, that we can rely on the superconsciousness to guide us. And our job is to simply remember that our objective is to tap into the super consciousness for our guidance. For that guidance, those divine ideas are divine. They're not just ideas or notions. And our spiritual growth is enhanced the more often we go into the super consciousness. It's that part of us that says, that's a great idea. And then we ask for guidance on how to input it. That's the superconsciousness at place. You see, when we attempt to do something and there is resistance and there's pushback and there's this negative outcome, we got our idea from our subconscious, not from our superconscious. That's the very clear distinction. When it doesn't lend itself to our highest and best possible outcome, it was our subconscious mind that we followed. And you see, we've been taught for many, 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 many years to rely on our subconscious, to rely on our history, to rely on other people telling us what we can and can't do, or what we should and shouldn't do. When in fact, none of that is relative. All that matters is that you choose the superconsciousness, the God mind, as your source, as your one guaranteed source to always do right for you. You see, when we follow the guidance of the superconsciousness, no one is ever harmed. Nothing is taken away from ourselves or from another human being. The moment somebody else is negatively impacted by what we choose to do, it's our subconscious mind. And our job is to be very conscious, openly aware of where we're getting our information. See, we've got to train our minds to not go to the subconscious first, but rather to go to the superconsciousness first. That's where we want to operate from. And that's the choice point that we as humans have. We get to choose where we want to get our information from. You can choose Wikipedia, which anybody who has an internet can submit anything to Wikipedia and announce that it's the truth. But it isn't necessarily. It's not backed up with the correct information. So we don't rely on Wikipedia. Our subconscious is a lot like that. It's been dumped. Things are flowing into our subconscious. Everything that's ever happened to us is sitting in this subconscious. You see, because we teach the cue process, and the cue process is our reminder that sometimes we are triggered by events that have happened to us because of our data sitting in the subconscious. We go in there and we realize that we've been triggered by a negative occurrence, and we have this opportunity to go to our past and rechange that notion of it being a trigger for us. And the superconsciousness is the same fashion. We go into the superconsciousness to decide if we want to follow the will of God. Now, intellectually, we all say we want to follow the will of God. I follow the will of God. Repeat that. I follow the will of God. But do we? You see, we have this experience of life right in our human form, that when we go to the superconsciousness, we will always be directed in the right manner. And ultimately, that is what we want. We just forget. We operate on automatic pilot, which is sitting in the monkey mind. You know, all that we see on TV and read and gather the data that is happening to the world around us is based on our five senses and what's being put into our subconscious mind. You know, we had a tumultuous week this week within our whole system of government. It was crazy making, no matter what side you're on. But the important part is for us to tap into the superconscious mind and say, I see peace in the world. I see peace all around me, and not in a fashion that it's just words, but rather an inner work that says, I trust God. You see, because remember, what we give our attention to grows. So do we want to stay in the negativity? In our spirit groups this last week, we talked about, what can we do? And the one thing you can always do is go into that peace center within you. And do not let the subconscious tell us that the world is falling apart. It's not. We've got a few wayward souls that are angry. We want them to be at peace. And so peace comes to the world by our inner work, our inner work. So to be able to tap into that superconsciousness is all you have to do. Easier said than done. I get that. I get it for myself. But my job here is to make you aware of your options, that you do not have to always go to the subconscious mind. You can choose the superconscious. You can tap into the mind of God. And the way you do that is you ask for it. You ask, you say, I am open and receptive to the mind of God in this situation, whatever that situation is. The daily word is about prosperity. And we know the prosperity is not just our pocketbook, but how do we create more health? How do we create more joy? How do we create more love in our lives? We do that by tapping into the mind of God. You see, the mind of God is always good. You can rely on that and count on it. And we get miscombobulated when things occur in our lives and we tend to feel separation, or we tend to actually separate ourselves from God. But the superconsciousness is sitting there waiting for you. You have within you all that you will ever need. All we have to do is tap into that resource. It's sitting there. That's why we are made in the image and likeness of God, because the image and likeness of God is sitting in the superconsciousness, and our conscious has taken it into the subconscious and changed the form. The more you think with the mind of God, the more your continence will change, the more that the image you have about yourself will change. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? Do you see God within you? Or do you see the wrinkles and the sagging? You get to choose. So here's your homework. Simple, doable. Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and see God's love for you. And that's your superconscious mind telling you you are loved by God always. And the more you realize that truth of you, your identity of God love within you, the more you come from that place, the easier it is for you to tap into that superconsciousness in the mind of God, where those divine ideas reside. Look in the mirror and see yourself loved by God. And then allow yourself to feel that love, the connectedness, that oneness that we have with God that resides within you. For you are made in the image and likeness of God, and you are loved. Please continue to send your gifts to Unity Spiritual Center, either through our Tidely app or through the U.S. mail system. And continue to join us for spirit groups on Thursdays from 1 to 2:30. I love you. I bless you. And Godspeed. And so it is. Amen.